Hello and welcome to this episode of Mysteries with a History. We will be taken on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. And with each episode together, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. So I have to start out by saying that I did notice and reading through my social media comments for all of the requests for me to cover the Miami mall police event where there were allegations of giant aliens and of course also the jellyfish video. And here's the thing, aside from mentioning them in episodes of Weekly Strange News, I got very wary and pretty cautious in devoting entire show episodes to that topic, because for stuff like this I do prefer to observe as more information becomes available, because let's face it, like, none of this is smoking gun evidence of anything, but we can try to look for corroborating evidence of these kinds of instances in other parts of the world at different points in time. And I came across some really interesting things. So let me bring in my co-host, Jimmy Church of Faded Black Radio. Jimmy, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. I'm ready.
Let's do this.
Now, here, hello everyone. How you doing? Great show. You just answered my question, and I think you did that on purpose because you knew I was gonna. So I don't have to ask where you got the idea for today's show. Yeah, this is blowing up in social media, and I agree with you. I've been getting the same prompts and questions and emails and text. What do I think? And I'm just going to leave it right there for now. But historically, we've got a lot of things that point at stuff in this direction. So we're going to go through all of that today. You just did your disclaimer. I'm going to do my disclaimer too, that this show and my comments in no way endorses, disproves, proves anything that is out there in social media right now. I don't want to make I don't want people to make those connections for me. Jimmy says, or Jimmy said, because I don't know. The jellyfish video, I'll just make this comment. To me, when I look at it, it doesn't change dimension or view in the 3D space, right? It's like it moves with the camera, and you don't see the back, you don't see, it doesn't change dimension in the 3D landscape. To me, from what I've seen, it's very fuzzy, but it just seems like it's, you know what I mean? It's with the camera. So I don't know. I don't know. And I do want to see this footage of it allegedly going in and out of the water, because that would change this discussion completely and change it for me too as well. So that being said, let's go. Where do you want to start?
Well, I have some really interesting videos as well, and I'm excited to share. But first, before we even get into it, I have a poll up on YouTube right now if you are watching this live, and we already have 128 votes. That's really awesome. And the question here is, what do you think the jellyfish UFO is? 25 so far say it's extraterrestrial biological entity. 37% say entity, tech from another dimension. 5% say Djinn, paranormal, supernatural. And 33% say balloons, trash, drone, man-made. That poll will be up until the very end of the show. So if you think you might have an answer, just click up one of those and we will read the results at the very end. So I think a great place to start, Jimmy, is actually going to as far back as we can in history on where maybe alleged jellyfish UFOs have been mentioned or depicted. And I came across this and I said, whoa. This is almost a little too interesting. So I want to share my screen here of this image. And Jimmy, I'm going to let you point it out. I'm going to see if you can see what I'm seeing. So here's the image, and I'll give you some details. But if I just zoom in just a touch, what are we seeing right here?
This is on both sides. It's on both sides. There's an orange one too on the left as well. This is a very famous painting, and a lot of ufologists, ancient alien theorists, including myself, have looked at this image for a long time and used this to support the idea that something was strange in the skies back then. This image, the artist is unknown. It's about 1,000 years old. Okay, so it dates back to around the 11th century. It's on a wall of the, are you ready? Svetislavi. I think
I'm glad you said it and not me, because I even put little hyphens on how to properly say it.
It's a tough one. And it's a cathedral in Eurasian, Georgia. And it appears to show something flying in the skies in the background. Now, let me say this. Right now, we are discussing jellyfish type stuff in throughout history. I don't see a jellyfish in the Jellyfish video. It's been called a jellyfish video, and so therefore we are tying that name to it. This looks like jellyfish to me in this painting. Undoubtedly, it looks like flying saucers with tentacles in the background. I don't see what's in this image, which is amazing. I don't see this in the, I'm going to go air quotes, jellyfish video. There's nothing jellyfish-like in the jellyfish video for me. I'm just speaking for me. But can I point out one thing in this painting? Yes. Much has been said about the guy pointing to the sky in the background. That dude right there, okay? And he looks like he's pointing at the orange jellyfish over on the other side, right? Maybe, but he might be pointing at Jesus too, as well. So to me, he looks like he's looking forward, not behind. But a lot has been made of that. You know, there's a guy there pointing at the jellyfish, or is he pointing at Jesus? I don't know. The painting itself, like I said, unknown artist, but the painting is fascinating. What is it that they were seeing in the sky that was so important 1,000 years ago that looked like that? I'm not so sure. I don't know. It's a fascinating painting.
It is, and it's very difficult when you are dealing with artists and their own interpretations of things that are going on, especially when a painting was created 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years later. You see what I'm saying? You can only use your imagination and maybe the information from books in order to create an art piece, especially during this time frame when it was created, believed to be what, in 1100? Is that correct? Ish? Something like that. Well, here's the thing. That's where it gets very hard. So could this, in this particular case with this particular painting, could this unknown artist have said, you know what? I feel like adding my artistic credentials here and putting some little jellies here, putting some little jellies there? Or did he come across some scripture, some writing, something that isn't made present now, to where he said, this is appropriate for this painting?
Yes, is my short answer to that. Here, this, okay. I have been to the aquarium up in Monterey, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And there they have the most amazing jellyfish display there. Multiple tanks. I don't know. There's probably a dozen. So the first tank you come up to is about this big, little teeny tiny jellyfish, and they're all swimming, together. It's pretty cool how they have it lit up. The next tank, they're a little bigger, a little bigger. The last tank is it's just a giant jellyfish. And it's fascinating. And you look at I've been bitten by jellyfish many times, by the way. And so I have a certain picture in my mind that comes from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And I've got to say, what I see in this painting right here resembles that. Yes, there's a connection. So here we can use the word jellyfish, I think, correctly in a historical context. I think that's what something that looks like a jellyfish is certainly depicted here.
And this is a really great place to start, but then we have to go back to maybe one of the first times the reference of a UFO jellyfish actually came out. And I have a little snippet of a newspaper clipping from the year 1954 where they mention a UFO jellyfish. Crazy. I know. So I'm going to pull this up. Now, let it take its sweet little time. There it is. And it says here, Flying Jellyfish Tailed Plane Crewman Report. And this was published Thursday, July 1st, 1954. And Jimmy, could you do the honors? Because you have that amazing reading voice to read just this little piece right here.
I have the same clip over here on this screen too as well. It's absolutely fascinating. London, July 1st, the crew of a British airliner reported the plane was followed last night for 80 miles by 7 weird flying black objects near Goose Bay. It's BA. Labrador. Captain James Howard, pilot of the New York to London airliner, said the mysterious escort vanished when a U.S. Air Force fighter plane came up to investigate. The British Overseas Airways Corporation, otherwise known as the BOAC, British Airways, Stratocruiser was at 19,000 feet, about 150 miles southwest of Goose Bay when the objects appeared. They flashed into sight and suddenly and obviously were not aircraft as we know them, Captain Howard said. All appeared black, and I will swear they were solid. They might have been 5 miles away. They stayed with us for 18 minutes. Quote, there was a big central object which appeared to keep changing shape. Flying jellyfish, we dubbed it. Quote, sometimes it was wedge-shaped, which is interesting. Sometimes like a dumbbell, again, interesting. Sometimes like a sphere with tail-like projections. The 6 smaller objects dodged about either in front or behind. All 10 members of the crew agreed with his description, as did those of the 51 passengers who were awake at the time of the sighting. Whoa, right?
And if we look at the timing of this, World War II had just ended. Many fighter pilots saw the Foo Fighters, and Project Blue Book had just started in 1952 and it ended in 1969. This is a really interesting time frame for this report to have come out when all of this is going on. Don't you think?
I do. It also reminds me of the cover of the Boston album, but that's another story. That's another. Yeah, it's like a UFO with tentacles, a flying saucer with tentacles. Yeah, very, very, very interesting. And I know that you were probably doing what I was doing, which is imagining Captain Howard about to say mothership. Because that's the way he's describing it, right? There was one large central ship with these 6 other craft darting around it. Very, very crazy explanation. And then, of course, the Air Force shows up with a fighter jet, disappears. Interdimensional, could be. And this is where a lot of this conversation is about to go.
And I think this is a flawless example of the UFO jellyfish being nothing new. It has been, I think this is one of the first reports being in 1954. Maybe it could have gone further back and it was never actually reported, but it goes to show that it's the same term as UAP. People say, oh, it came out in 2020, 2021, 2022, whatever. But to my knowledge, John Greenwald Jr. from the Black Vault said, no, it's been going on since the 50s or 60s. That's when the term was first used, or the acronym. But it's being rehashed and saying, oh, well, look at this new term. But in reality, is it anything new? Is any of the information that we have come across or will come across in the future be actual new information?
Yeah, and again, it's the word. It's the word that we are using. We don't have a better word to use here, but we know what a jellyfish looks like. And if we take this into another direction, like Greenwald and many others have done, including yourself, Cristina, and we look into the work of those, well, Jacques Valle certainly spoke about this quite a bit, but others too as well. It's not the first. It didn't start with Jacques Valle. Jacques Valle pushed this into popular culture, of course, and has been stressing this aspect of things for a long time. But this is where it gets crazy. How do we know what something is in an interdimensional aspect, and something that is what's the word I want to use, interlocked with our own world, something that is existing right alongside of us, but we're just not in the right frequency, right?
That
We're not
is
in.
such a great question.
Yeah. How do we know what is cruising around out there and what they look like? So that's it. Again, jellyfish is a great word to use. I don't see a jellyfish in the jellyfish video, though. I see other things. I just don't see what is in that painting of Jesus.
I want to hold on to that thought just for a moment, Jimmy, of you mentioning how would we be able to understand or even rationalize if it was interdimensional. But let's back it up just for a second. When we have looked through history, people attempt to describe something unknown to them by comparing it to other things. And an example of this is Christopher Columbus. He wrote in his journal that he saw a candlelight going in and out of the water. Today, we would define that as maybe an orb or some kind of UFO. But to Christopher Columbus in the 1400s, he said, okay, what does this look like to me at this point in time? Kind of like a candlelight. You know what? That'll do. And he wrote that bad boy down. Now, if we were to think about this in an interdimensional aspect, this is where it gets really confusing or difficult to attempt and explain this, because maybe at this point in time, we don't have the proper vocabulary to attempt and express the things that we are experiencing or witnessing, or maybe for those that classify or say that they have received downloads by entities that could potentially be interdimensionals as well. Language is a huge barrier. While people can understand it and we have so many different mediums to communicate, language is so specific and it places you in a box more so than maybe dreams or maybe telepathy, right? Where you can bring in colors, smells, sounds, feelings. But words, that's all you have is words. And then the interpreter has to attempt and understand the exact thing that you went through and attempt to engulf themselves in the same environment that you went through during your experience. And that's where it gets very difficult, because if they've never experienced that before, it's foreign to them.
100%. I have often described a sighting that I had with a large group of people in the sky as the Zorro Z. Okay. Now, the reason why I describe it that way, well, one, I don't have another way to put it, but the Zorro Z, that Zorro made with his sword, right? Right. And right. Oh, that's what I saw in the sky, was this object that went backwards, but like that. Right. So I call it the Zorro Z. Now, let's say in a historical context, 100 years from now, that quote for me is lingering out there. Jimmy Church's Zorro Z UFO. Now, is it a craft shaped like a Z? Right? How is it going to be interpreted? It's the only way that I had to describe it. So you go back historically, when we're talking about angels and demons and ghosts and fairies and gremlins and gray aliens or whatever it is, those were the words used during that time, like with Christopher Columbus. He didn't have another way of describing it. And maybe today somebody would say something which is also ancient sounding. It looked like a flashlight under the water. right? Well, okay, I get, but what were they actually seeing? They don't have another way to put it, and to say it that way. It sounds just as ancient as candlelight, right? Flashlight, but it was what if factually we find out that it was an interdimensional energy plasma source that popped into this debate, but it was described as looking like a flashlight or candlelight or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. Timing is everything with this. Like my Zorro Z.
It is. And even when Jacques Valle first attempted to tell the world, based off of his research, that maybe not all these UFOs that we are seeing in our environment are extraterrestrial, referring to another planet, but in our universe, maybe they could be from an alternate reality or a parallel universe or a different dimension altogether. And when he first mentioned this, I believe it was like what, in the 80s, maybe early 90s, people were saying, Valle, you're out of your absolute mind. What are you talking about? All UFOs are ET. They are extraterrestrial, and that is it. But now, in present day, in 2024, people are becoming more open minded to that possibility. Those that have had experiences are saying, what I encountered wasn't ET per se, but it was more interdimensional. I was interacting with an energy being or whatever it may be. There are so many different contact key stories. You can pick and choose which ones you like and want to listen to. But what I'm getting at here is, well, Valet wasn't the first to bring this up. He was one of the first to popularize it. And then you have J. Allen Hynek, after years of retiring, not really retiring from Project Blue Book, but leaving it after it closed down due to the Condon report. He says here, I have to come to support less and less the idea that UFOs are nuts and bolts spacecraft from other worlds. There are just too many things that go against that theory. To me, it seems ridiculous that a technologically advanced race would travel great distances to be relatively stupid things like stop cars, collect soil samples, and frighten people. I think we must begin to re examine the evidence. We must look closer to home for the answer. I think we should consider that UFOs come from other dimensions, a parallel reality, a universe that exists in the same place as ours, but at a different frequency, so to speak. And this is, even in today, in 2024, it's mind blowing. It really is. And for those listening to this, watching this, if you're enjoying the show, hit that like button down below. Let's get to 300 likes. Right now, we have 558 people watching this live. So if you are enjoying it, only if, of course, hit that like button right down below. But Jimmy, two things. One, I am hearing feedback, and I just fixed my microphone. I don't know if it's on your end, but I'm gonna maybe say check it out. But the second thing is,
you sound solid.
oh man, I'm hearing it on my side and I'm seeing in the live chat. But okay, if you say it's good, it's good. But my second thing is, when you first heard this information come from Hynek saying it might be interdimensional, it might be from a different dimension, what was going through your mind during that time frame?
Yeah, he okay, I've got another quote from Hynek that I love. Now keep this image up here of Jacques and J. Allen Hynek, because they did a couple of things together. They collaborated together. They had a lot of conversations about this subject together. And in one of I pulled this quote from one of their conversations about this subject. And Valet is asking him a question about the interdimensional aspect of everything. And this is Hynek's answer, quote, "There could be other universe with different quantum rules or vibration rates, if you want. Our own space-time continuum could be a cross-section through a universe with many more dimensions. Right now, through this room, TV pictures are passing. Yet they're here," right? The TV signals are going through the room, but the TV signals are in the room at the same time. You have to have a transducer to see them, namely a TV set. Well, in the same sense, there may be interlocking universes right here. We have this idea of space. We always think of another universe being someplace else. It may not. Maybe it's right here, end quote. And that's a heavy, heavy statement coming from Hynek. And it resonates with me and others because we talk about this subject a lot, Cristina, that we, us, you and I, like right now, we're looking at each other on a screen through the internet, and everybody else is seeing us. That's at a certain frame rate and at a certain frequency. That gets altered, we disappear, right? So we have to be spot on, but we see each other, and we can talk and we can hear, right? Okay. It's the same thing with the real world and our vision and the frequency of light in that spectrum that we can see. What we can hear are certain frequency ranges, right? But anything outside of those ranges simply disappears. It's gone. Can't see it, right? So who is to say that there isn't, to our left and to our right, infinite parallel worlds operating at the same time, just off, just another frequency off to the left or to the right, and that there may be an existence out there that is just as real, just as three-dimensional as you and I, and this desk that is sitting in front of me, and this hot cup of coffee. Exactly. And the way that Hynek put it, it was frightening because, and other authors and researchers have spoken about this. Hynek refers to TV signals, right? Okay. Because that's in that time period. TV signals. Okay. Today, what about Wi-Fi? That's a great example. What's carrying on Wi-Fi right now? Well, how about a movie? How about FaceTime? How about, right? But you can't see it. You need to have something receive it. And that's the case, right? You have to have eyeballs and you have to see in that certain frequency range. And right now, Wi-Fi is beaming all over the place. It's coming from your neighbor's house, right? But you can't see or read any of that. You need to have a transducer, something in between, to receive it and to see it. And that may be the case with so much supernatural and paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena that we see today.
That was a beautiful way of putting it, Jimmy. Next, I want to display some videos that might be somewhat similar to the UFO jellyfish. I'm going to share my screen here. I have several. I'm going to play this first one. And what sucks actually is that there is very little information about these videos, but this particular one was shot in Mexico in 2022. My little note right there. Okay. And there's no audio. But if we're looking at this, you see this object coming into the middle of the screen. And in a sense, it does look like a deflated balloon. It really does. Now, you see these three dogs that are just going hysterical over this thing that's floating over. But it's the side profile that I find really compelling, at least in my opinion here, where I'm like, I don't know what that is. Could it be a deflated balloon? It's a high possibility. But it was significant enough for this anonymous person to post this online. And I see it's getting even worse. And I got this video from Twitter, now known as the X. But this one, I just thought it was worthy of sharing. Now, Jimmy, you seeing this? What are your thoughts on it?
Remember when this video came out, and it's interesting. It is. It's fun to look at. It's fun to watch. We could throw a million theories on the table. What I do find interesting as we watch it approach here, this thing takes a turn. Okay, right? It just goes hurt. The dogs show up, and it goes in the other direction. Would that be? It's very consistent too. Would that be wind causing that change in direction? I would think that it would maybe go backwards. I don't know, but it seems very consistent. Now, right here is when you get that profile shot. Yeah, keep it going. Keep it going. Right there. And now it's looking not like a deflated balloon, but like a spirit, like a witch. All we need is a broomstick, man, and that thing goes to a whole nother level. I love this video. Yeah, I've seen it many, 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 many times. I can't explain this one. It's a good video. Now, it could be a drone with a piece of toilet paper hanging off the top of it. Maybe it's somebody messing with the dogs. It could be that. I don't know. I don't know. But if we just take it at face value, that is an unknown object cruising around. I've seen this video so many times. Go ahead and roll it.
This one is in Poland, and it was filmed in 2020.
This was called, I think at the time, they were calling this a witch on a broomstick. Hence my joke about the last one. This is a great video. There's a lot of videos like this out there that have been going around for dozens of years. That kind of shows, a human shaped kind of thing with a cape coming off of it, and something. That's what this kind of reminds me of here. I don't know. Now, also, this is a little bit like the jellyfish video. Now, looking at this, would you call this a jellyfish? No. But I would say that this looks similar to the, air quote, jellyfish video.
I would definitely place it in the same category of jellyfish UFO type. But no, you're not seeing tentacles. It does kind of look like a kite in some ways, but you see these very odd ridges on it. Could it have been like a torn up kite? High possibility. But it is something that it's odd looking, and there are no answers to these videos that I'm showing to you so far. Right now,
Stop right there. There is a pointy hat, though. There's a pointy hat. It looks like a pointy hat to me. Yeah, you see that? Yeah. Wizard of Oz. I love this video. It's a great video.
And I have another video to share, but before we do that, hit that like button right down below. So while you're doing that, let me just back up one more to this one. This one has no information whatsoever, but it's bizarre.
That's the jellyfish video.
Oh, duh, I knew that. My bad.
Now, if you notice, okay, roll the jellyfish video again. That object does not move in dimension. And if you look at the space between the two things sticking down at the bottom, that never closes. That's absolutely. So either it's turning with the camera, right? But it doesn't change. It stays right exactly the same.
Well, it does seem to go translucent just for a moment. But what's really unique about this one, and now, no, of course it could be. And I just want to mention this because I know I sounded really stupid just a second ago. I got to save myself here. But when we're looking at this item, this object, to me, it kind of looks like coral. In some ways, it does have this organic feel to it. You're not seeing any strong edges on this. You are seeing tentacles more so than the other videos that I have demonstrated so far. And it's just one that I definitely would say does not fit in the category of nuts and bolts. Now, what is this item? That's where the curiosity lies, and we don't have that information, at least not yet. There's rumors surrounding this video, but we haven't had any concrete answers by anyone to say it's definitely this. Do you see what I'm saying here? But when we're looking at this, and I want to just put it on replay. Hold on. I keep pressing. There we go. Now I'll just keep playing over and over again. But what's interesting about this is that this looks like it could come out of an H.P. Lovecraft novel, A Guardian, or kind of like Cthulhu. When I first saw it, that is what came to mind, was Cthulhu being my number one guess. But it's, and maybe it's the video that's showing this kind of like brightness and darkness aspect that we're seeing here. I just, I in some respects I am lost for words, but we also have to remember that this is in Iraq, and I wonder if Muslims would interpret this to be a jinn.
Yeah,
That's a big question I have.
yeah, Jinn. We'll circle back to that. It kind of fits in the classic definition of jinn only because it was invisible. Now, there are other reports. We've lost Cristina, so it's just me. You know, I've read, I'm trying to stay on top of this. I've read some of the recent stuff that has surfaced with the people that were involved with this video and the eyewitnesses, and that they definitely said this was not seen by anybody, right? It was only picked up by this one camera. It was not visible with the naked eye, and it was not visible with night vision. So that, if you couldn't see this night vision right there, immediately scratches off something physical. Night vision, I don't care what's in the sky. It doesn't matter. You are going to see it. And if it's not there, then night vision is not. You understand what I'm saying? If it isn't there. So if you take that out of the play, it fits into the classic definition of a jinn, an invisible entity. But how was it picked up by this with thermal imaging? So now I've also read that the reason why it changes color, appears to change color, is because the thermal temperature was being adjusted on the camera itself. That this object, whatever it is not changing. It is the settings on the camera and the thermal imaging are being adjusted. That's what that is. So, but I don't know. My thing is, as I look at it, especially playing over and over here, it never changes its three-dimensional position. It doesn't. It stays absolutely perfect. It doesn't change at all.
Especially
so I don't.
especially when we're comparing it to the other videos that we just watched, we were able to, like, for instance, the one in Mexico, we were able to see its front profile and its side profile. The one in Poland, you were able to see the side and the back. And then in this one, you're right, we only see one aspect to this. And it does raise a lot of questions here, but this is something that is being talked about significantly, and I'm really glad that we have this opportunity today, Jimmy, to talk about other cases from around the world that share similar characteristics. There isn't just this one video. This isn't anything particularly unique that should be like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing on the planet Earth. No, because there have been other things similar to this, but what you bring up of only seeing one side to it, it is, now that you mentioned it, it is rather odd.
It is. It just, it doesn't change. I mean, at all. Not. And you would think, and no matter what, airplane, balloon, drone, anything in the helicopter, anything in the sky, doesn't matter, kite. It doesn't matter, right? Floating debris, it moves. Something changed. This is completely static. It's completely static. But maybe that's what interdimensional beings had the capability of doing, staying perfectly still.
Well,
right?
there's also the answer, Jimmy, that it could be bird fecal matter. And could that be a possibility in your opinion?
You mean something on the lens of the camera or something? Yeah, could be. It looks like a floaty in your eye.
I've never had those, thank goodness. They seem kind of scary. No. So I can't relate to that.
I'm having one right now. So if we go, you can go ahead and pull this down. the references. Let's go back to the interdimensional aspect of this, because my opinion has changed, and I reserve the right to change my mind and change my opinion because I'm learning all the time. I used to argue with other UFO researchers about the ETH, and I had grown up with the idea of little green men in a metal flying saucer cruising around, the universe and our solar system, they're flying around in a metal ship of some kind. I grew up with the Jetsons. So with that, I often wondered, how are they getting here? That's a long time to spend in a spaceship. And why don't we have these perfect photographs of these craft? But I have evolved. The ideas behind the interdimensional aspect of the phenomenon goes way back. So let's look at a couple of examples. In July 1947, we know about Roswell. We also know about Kenneth Arnold and what happened up in Tacoma, Washington. Okay, July 1947 was a big year, right? It was a big year. But Independence Day, July 4th, right, which is on or around the date of the Roswell crash that nobody knew about until July 8th, when the Roswell Daily Record printed their story, their headline, right? On July 4th, 1947, occultist Meade Lane claimed that flying discs were etheric, interdimensional. Lane claimed to be in telepathic communication with, quote, people in the saucers, end quote, arguing, quote, it is possible for objects to pass from an etheric to a dense level of matter and will then appear to materialize. This is in 1947. They then will return to an etheric condition. Lane claimed that these visitors, I'm quoting here, these visitors are not excarnate humans, but are human beings living in their own world. They have come with good intent. They have some idea of experimenting with Earth life. Then he goes on to say, the prior year, the year before, it had been reported that Lane consulted a medium who relayed communications from, quote, a spaceship named Carita, end quote, that came to Earth from an unidentified planet. Now, how interesting is that? Now, that predates, when we look at Jacques Valle's book, that came out in 1993, Passport to Magonia. And I forget the byline for that, folklore, fairies, and UFOs or something like that. But that came out in 1993, and I couldn't wait for that book. And I got it, and I read it, and it changed my worldview quite a bit on what actually may be going on and what it is that we are seeing, because so much of it is in a fleeting instant, right? But that was in 1993. This report came out on July 4th, 1947. How strange that it was a day or two before the Roswell incident. And then if we back up, if we move forward and we go to John Keel. John Keel has been talking about it. John Keel, in his 1970 book on UFOs, called UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, he stated that a non-human or spiritual intelligence source has staged whole events over a long period of time in order to propagate and reinforce belief systems. Now, is he referring to religion? Is he referring to pop culture? Is he referring to a geopolitical situation? He's saying in a general sense, belief systems. He continues, he says, monsters, ghosts, demons, the fairy faith, vampires, mystery airships in 1897, mystery airplanes of the 1930s, mystery helicopters, creature sightings, poltergeist phenomena, balls of light, and UFOs are all here to cover up the real phenomenon. Keel called them ultra terrestrials.
Here, and this is where it gets kind of touchy, but something that needs to be addressed, especially for today, talking about interdimensionals, is the aspect of religion. And this is going to make some people very upset. Others are going to be like, heck yeah, keep going. Just depends on who you are. But when we are bringing in the aspect of any religion or belief, we can start off with this one here. And I'm going to pull this up just to make sure that we are all on the same page. Because even if we look at the concepts of heaven and hell in Catholicism, are those not different realms, different dimensions, along with angels and demons? Since they did not originate from Earth, doesn't that make them alien? And so when we're looking at this, we can even look at the phrase, Our Father who art in heaven. Heaven isn't on Earth, is it? I mean, maybe it is for some people, but for the majority of people, I don't think it is. And so when we're looking at it from that aspect, is it a different plane of existence? Is it a different dimension? Is it a different realm? Is it just right down the street? Do you see what I'm saying here? And so when people bring in this idea, and you read it in your comments, or you hear it in books, or you hear people say it, and they say all aliens are demons, and that's what it is, and that's that. And I think to myself, can't all demons be aliens? But why do all aliens have to be demons? It's kind of like a square, a rectangle is a square, but a square isn't a rectangle kind of deal. And so looking at this from that particular aspect, I could say that they're not entirely wrong, but when we use the connotation of a demon, that it's a negative one. It's saying that they are evil. All of them are evil, that all of them are attempting to possess you to do their evil bidding, whatever it may be. But then we have to look into the aspect of those that have mentioned space brothers, those that are attempting to help humanity, cure cancer, help the planet Earth, save it from all of the pollution that is going on. So which one is it? You can't have it both ways, or can you? And so bringing this piece into it, that's where it boggles a lot of people's mind, myself included. I grew up Catholic, coming from a Latin background, but all of it, it's so subjective. And then that's it is.
No,
It's
stay
just
right there.
subjective. And it
Don't
seems
stop that.
well,
Don't
it
stop
seems
that.
that we tend to project our own biases on to these types of things.
Yeah, don't stop at that train of thought. I like where you're going. And if we take things literally, like and many take the Bible literally. So if we do that, heaven, right, on earth as it is in heaven, well, heaven's not here. Heaven's up there. And the way that God created man in whose image?
God's
In
image.
his. Right. So does that mean that E.T. is also created in God's image? Would E.T. look like us? Or on that other planet is the wording different? Is it a different situation? Right? Where man isn't called man, that species is called something else. They may not look anything like us, but they are saying this, using the same type of Bible verse. If we take things literally, right, and we do that, then the Bible is talking about an extraterrestrial universe out in space situation. And there isn't another way to look at it. There just simply isn't. And if we look at the descriptions of what an angel is, or how they speak, or who spoke to them, and where they come from. Wait a minute here, right? Now, they use the word angel, but you can interplay any word into that and have a completely different situation in today's context. So we have to stay with that. And by you keeping that viewpoint and staying locked onto that is perfect. None of us have the answers, right? With the Bible or with ET or with anything else, it seems. We don't have these answers, and it's a very complicated issue. And when Jacques Valle started to bring up this interdimensional aspect of it, I know that a lot of people, and including very smart religious scholars and scientists and ufologists, we're looking at this, we're immediately reminded of history and religions and demons and ghosts and genies in a bottle. That the phenomena is much, much more complex than trying to break it down to something very, very simple. And so I think it's there in history, and not only with Jacques Valle, but it's right there in many biblical texts, Egyptian texts, Sumerian texts, Vedic text, Hinduism and Buddhism, and every religion or belief system on the planet talks about the same thing.
And I've been told by people I've interviewed that there are those in the government and in the military that interpret UFOs as demonic in nature. And this is something that has been mentioned a lot on different social media platforms. And it's something that you would think in 2024 would be classified as old thinking. But in reality, when you hold faith or religion near and dear to your heart, that's where it becomes difficult to receive other information and attempt to look at it open-minded, instead of having a very closed mindset and say, well, if it doesn't fit in my box, then it has no relevance. And this is where bias comes in, and bias can be very dangerous, but it's something that every single person has.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on our perspective and how we grew up and our environment. But once we're able to realize our bias, that's where it gets a lot easier to attempt and understand the things that we are looking at, but at the same time to tell ourselves we need to unlearn certain things. And that's where it becomes very difficult for a lot of people. It takes a lot of courage in all reality to admit that, hey, I didn't know this information, or admit to be wrong. This topic, it's a learning curve. Every single day, the more information you get, the more you learn. You're like, you know what I thought yesterday, I don't really think that today anymore. But people assume that when we have these kinds of talks, that what we say is absolutely concrete with our thoughts and ideas, but that really isn't the case. And Sandy, thank you so much. And Brian, thank you so much as well. You guys' support is so valuable. It really does help the channel for future projects. So I do appreciate that. And Sandy says, in my opinion, if all these species of extraterrestrial and multidimensional entities should be treated with respect and as if they are human as well. I'm going to say human because, like humans, some may be good and some may not be. And you are right. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket, as they say. Just like how you have good and bad people, nice cats and bad cats, good dogs and bad dogs. The list can go on and on. Why can't we place that same type of thinking to these entities that we do not fully understand? Not everything that we're going to see are like the Klingons, okay, in Star Trek. And even then, there are some good ones and there are some bad ones as well. So why can't there be an exception for everything?
Well, and then I'm just going to say it. In the biblical version of this, it doesn't matter if you're evil. God has already won the war, right? Evil's not going to prevail. God's got this. God's got this. And so now let's switch this back to ET. If ET really wanted to force us into having a bad time, we would know it. So either they have evolved into a universal enlightened species where there isn't any negativity, which I don't think that would be the case, or good ETs have our back. Kind of like what it says in the Bible. And again, we're going back to that where the wording is just, let's just put some different word interplay into it and we have something else. Now, let's go back to the Jinn for a second. The Jinn are defined as, are you ready? Most people don't know this. You know, I always think of like flying carpets. I dream of Genie, Aladdin. I don't know. I just go there. I go there. Jinn, invisible creatures in early religion in pre-Islamic Arabia and later in Islamic culture and beliefs. Although generally invisible, Jinn are supposed to be composed of thin and subtle bodies and can, are you ready? Change at will. Dun, dun, dun. Now, here's another aspect of the Jinn that is out there too, as well, is that there isn't good or bad Jinn. It's just Jinn, right? They've never been classified as good or evil. They're just there, and I find that very, 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 very interesting, right? Because there's always the fear aspect applied to anything. Right, for a way of control, like with ETs, right, and UAPs today, to national security issues. So you put the fear label on it, and it's the same thing with anything else. You know, how do you control the masses? You scare the crap out of them. But that's not the case, Cristina, with the Jinn. The Jinn are like gendered evil neutral. They are. They are. They're not good and they're not bad.
When it comes to the Jinn, from my understanding, is that they're just barely in our realm. So some are able to kind of perceive them, but from the scriptures that I've come across, it just mentions that in many respects, they just want to live their life. They have families, they go about things, but there are some evil ones, just like with people, and some of them do very bad things. And that's how we got Aladdin and the genie in the bottle. It came originally from the Jinn, from Islam. And so when we're looking at this, this is no exception in the sense of there are both good and evil. Now, right now, if you are watching this live, we have 191 votes for our poll. What do you think the jellyfish UFO is? Is it 28% say it's extraterrestrial biological entity, 37% say entity tech from other dimension, 6% say Jinn, paranormal, supernatural, and 28% say balloons, trash, drone, and man-made. And with the
it's about even. The poll is about even.
Yeah, people are pretty split on it, but I know that we have it's 475 votes. I said 191. It just refreshed, looking at 400. But those stats I gave you are still the same. But just when it comes to the Jinn, before we move on, is that some people compare them to skinwalkers. And we're talking about non-human entities originating from another dimension that can appear and disappear, but that can also shapeshift as well. And so, like the shadow people, I mean, what are we seeing here? A convergence of UFOs to interdimensional fact orbs, or could we even be looking at orbs and rods, also known as skyfish? All of these little aspects, all of these little tidbits just add to this ginormous curry that we're making, Jimmy, with all of these different spices, trying to attempt and understand what the heck is going on. And is there a connection between all of them? That is the biggest thing. Is it that labels are the things that are confusing us when we're looking at different cultures, different religions, different ideas? When people say, a good example might be, let's use the word demon again. Demon is this ginormous umbrella of so many different things. But if you're going to say a demon to a Muslim, they'll say, oh, you mean Jinn. And the other person will say, no, I mean demon. This is what a demon is. And they're like, no, it's a definition of a Jinn in my mentality. And what I'm getting at here is labels can be very confusing. Is it by design? Is it just because of the different cultural aspects and the words aren't there? Is it a mixture of all of the above? Or is it merely by accident? But when we attempt to communicate with somebody else that doesn't have the same mentality or background as ourselves, we have to use usually extra words to attempt and describe what we are experiencing, seeing, feeling, thinking, and so on. And will our development as a human species eventually lead us to learn how to access other dimensions so we can reach other planets in our universe? I mean, this is the only way to travel non-linear across vast distances to access other realities like hyperspace. And by using that particular shortcut, we'll be like ripping into the realm of other intelligences. I mean, is that a possibility? Can we bring in the aspect? Is it appropriate to bring in the aspect of portals and wormholes in this conversation, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, see, and that's what's so fascinating about the jellyfish video, right? I think you described it as maybe possibly bird poop on the lens. And what that video, it may not be anything interdimensional, but it is causing conversation, and it allows us to look back historically into the context of the way people were having these discussions. That 1,000-year-old painting of Jesus with what looks like jellyfish flying saucers painted on the wall. That's what this video is doing. And for us to be able to talk about, you just said everything right in a row, right? Wormholes to religion, to physics and interdimensional NHIs. What is it that's making this contact with us? We are able to think like this and to have this discussion. That's what that video did. And you can go back to the Tic Tac video. Right? Whatever is in the video, does it really matter? Not really. What matters is the reaction to the world, the conversations that are going on. What is it that our government knows about this subject, the way that the media is treating it, the questions that we are asking about the phenomenon? That's what's important here, Cristina. And I find that fascinating. The chat room is lit up. Right. People are going to continue to see this video and this conversation between us and its connections to our own cultures going back thousands of years. Right. Our ancestors have been seeing things and hearing things and documenting and talking about these things for a very, very, very long time. And this is not a brand new phenomenon. It's not. This didn't start today. It didn't start yesterday or last week in Iraq or in Roswell, New Mexico. This is a very, very old subject, and we need to continue to discuss it. That's what I find so fascinating. You know, to have that one video be the catalyst to this broad conversation that we're having on the show today is amazing.
It is broad, but I really have to say I appreciate the optimism. What you are saying, and this is very valuable. And actually, before I even finish my thought, let me do this before I forget. Clean, thank you so much, and Mark Tasaka, thank you so much as well. You guys are absolutely amazing, and Android as well. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Now, I gotta finish my train of thought here because that is with this level of optimism that you have, Jimmy. It's valuable. And I think people overlook it at times. They say, we want answers. We want everything on a silver spoon. Give us this, give us that. Everything that you provide us is incredibly important. And in some aspects, many aspects, yes, the information that you provide is very, very important and it should be the truth. Now, is that always the case? This topic is very difficult because you deal with a lot of misinformation and disinformation and you don't know who to listen to, who to believe, what to believe, right? I get that. But the aspect of having a conversation and saying, whatever, if this video is real or not, referring to this jellyfish, maybe UFO, maybe even referring to the TikTok, like you had mentioned. People are talking about this, and that is how we're going to receive any type of transparency or disclosure, is first getting people involved in the topic, having them ask their own questions, and then being able to get the ball rolling faster. Because if it's only 10, 100, 1,000 people interested in this topic, you're not going to get too far. But if you have millions of people, billions of people, that's when things really, truly, honestly begin to change. And to refer to Android here, the thing ended up getting the nickname Spaghetti Monster on the base, which does make me wonder, did it show up more than once? That's the big question here. Because my question is, does anyone here know about that? Please comment or email me if you do. I also do try to read all of the emails and comments as well. I try to read all of those. So that if you have information on that, please do. But to read Android's question for those listening to this instead of watching, it says, one of the Intel guys by the name of Michael Konkowski, did I say that right? No, Sinkowski?
Sinkoski.
Thank you, Jimmy, who was at the Iraq base, just tweeted that the Intel team was on duty when the video was recorded, debriefed him that they saw it go in the water. And it sucks that we don't have that little tidbit of the video to see it go in the water, because this is where I think it could answer a lot of
Not mine.
maybe.
Not mine.
You don't think so?
That's just talk.
Well, this
Okay.
whole thing is just talk, is it not?
Oh, we've got a video. We've got a video of that thing going across. Okay. So, but it entering the water for 17 minutes and then coming out, you don't have a video of that and you're making that kind of claim, then you need to back up the video. Otherwise, it's just talk. It's just talk. That's it. I will not jump in the deep end of the pool. You think I'm going to walk around going, man, this thing went in the water for 17 minutes and there were witnesses. I'm not doing that. No way. Show me the video, and then we can have a conversation about it. Until then, no. You know what do they say? If a tree falls in the forest, right, and nobody's around, well, maybe it fell, maybe it didn't. Schrodinger's cat. It's like. So that's it. That's it. Man, a team of experts. And Android, I appreciate that, and that's another aspect of this. There's a lot of interest in this. I watch the news reports. It went in the water. I'm the news, right? For 17 minutes. You need to be dangerously careful about making those kinds of statements live on the air on the news without anything to back it up. You just can't.
They'll tear you apart. They'll tear you apart. But to what you had mentioned earlier, you can jump on the deep end, and I agree, because I will only discuss what we can see. Otherwise, it's just hyperbole and gossip. Really, if we get down to it, that's exactly what it is. Or even hearsay, and this just bothers a lot of people. And yet, pointing back to your optimism, at least we are having this conversation. People are getting interested in the topic, and that's what matters almost more than anything else. Not entirely, because of course we want that full-on transparency and that disclosure, and for some people, just to hear that they were right. But for the most part, it's having these conversations that are so valuable.
It makes a concussion wave, but it doesn't make a sound unless there's something to hear it.
Well, in today's world, it's, if you didn't Snapchat it, did it really happen?
I know. If it's not on TikTok, bro. Oh, man. All right. Okay. So moving on. I can already see Twitter later. Jimmy Church said today with Cristina, man, save all that. No filter. $2. It costs $2 to say that you're late to the chat these days. I'm just letting everybody know. $2. What was that movie? With John Cusack, the skiing movie? $2 with the paper boy. better off dead. My $2. Okay, Buddhists and Hindus. Let's talk about the realms for a quick second, because again, back to the interdimensional aspect to this. There are two different religions that started in the same area. Buddhism was first, like 500 BC, like right in there. Hinduism, a couple hundred years later, right? But a lot of crossover, same area of the world, but some distinct differences. Now, I'm not going to get into the religious differences of it. That's the matter with this conversation. What does have to do with this conversation is the interdimensional aspect of this, the parallel worlds aspect of this, and the Hindu and the Buddhist realms. 6 levels. There are the realms of the gods. There are the realms of the demigods. Okay, that's good and evil right there, by the way. Just going to throw that in there. You have the humans. Have the realm of the humans, you have the realm of the animals, you have the realm of the hungry ghost, and the realm of hell. And generally, Buddhism tends to teach that these levels are real modes of existence. Yep. In the Hindu side of things, again, Cristina, you know much more about Buddhism and Hinduism than I do. But in Buddhism, this is reality, and in the Hindu side of things, it's more of a metaphor. So I could be wrong. So tell us about the realms.
So just to back up just a little bit here, Hinduism is vastly more ancient than Buddhism. Prince Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, like Shakyamuni Buddha, was actually originally Hindu. And so when we're just to kind of fill in the gaps there, but looking at this right here, which is dealing with the 6 realms that is talked about in Buddhism and the majority of the branches of Buddhism, as you had mentioned, there are 6 realms dealing with the 6 realms in samsara, to be specific, which is the realm of suffering, which that in itself is already describing different realms. And so in this realm of suffering, the realm of samsara, you have a godly realm, but even though they are gods, they can still suffer. They still have like desires, ego, things like that. You have the human realm, you have the animal realm, which, just to back up a little bit, this is for those that believe in reincarnation. So when you pass over, you just move into a different life. And it all depends based off of your karma. All the good and bad deeds that you did gets balanced out, kind of like in the Egyptian mythology as well. And then depends on that karma, do you get to be born in any of these realms, any of these 6 realms, or higher if you do enlighten, like the Pure Land and things like this. So let's say you do some really terrible things, right? You might end up in the animal realm and be a cat or a dog or a cow or a pig, whatever. And then you have the realm of hungry ghosts, which are those that as soon as they had crossed over, they still had vast attachments, which would still be classified in a sense in like modern terminology as a ghost, per se, like a ghost that you see that they're just not able to move on because they have an attachment, maybe to their possessions, to a loved one, to their home, whatever it may be. Then you have the hell realms, and that in itself is a handful of different hell realms, depending on how bad your karma is. And then you have this realm that we're in right now, Jimmy, that you and I are in. There's like your average, everyday, human-y type realm. And when we're looking at this, what's taught in Buddhism and also what's taught in Hinduism in the aspects of reincarnation is that these entities, have it be Buddhas that are coming down from their celestial realm or demon kings that are coming from their hell realm over to this realm, in that aspect, they would be classified as interdimensionals because they're not coming, as the scriptures say, they are not coming from our universe, just on another planet. I hope that's an extraterrestrial. We are dealing with interdimensionals, with those that have these types of encounters. It's the same thing when we bring in Catholicism with angels and demons. They're coming from their own realms, how it be heaven and hell, coming on here and maybe guiding you, maybe helping you out, maybe just kind of checking out the world, seeing how it's going, if you're doing the right thing or whatnot. But in a lot of religions and cultures, they teach this exact thing. But the original multiverse concept started with Sanatana Dharma, which became Hinduism, but also Taoism. And Taoism also has a multiverse as a pillar of beliefs. And this aspect of the multiverse really became prevalent in the sense of popularity due to the movie Doctor Strange. And then you have all like the Spider-Man cartoons. You have the Spider-Man and him when he's meeting with all the other Spider-Man. Do you see what I'm saying here? It's becoming more popular. You're seeing it a lot, but it's a very ancient concept that for a very long period in time, scientists said, nope, multiverse is impossible. Other dimensions are impossible. But now in 2023, 2024, scientists and science is proving otherwise. And maybe, just maybe, these movies like Doctor Strange or Spider-Man No Way Home, whatever that title is, it's a primer for people to start asking these kinds of questions. And that when this information does come out in the sense of science bringing this up, people will say, I already knew that. Thank you, Cumberbatch, for helping me with that information.
Yeah. And what about like Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I like
Right.
that movie.
Yeah. It's the same thing. And last night on the show, we're going to talk about Vimanas here in a second. Last night on the show, I had Dee Snider on, and Dee, the singer for Twisted Sister, and Dee is a very, very, very smart, very learned guy. Love Dee, very smart guy. And so we started talking about ET last night and what they were, and he goes, man. And this is what he said, goes right back to what you just said right there, Cristina. It was very interesting. He said, I think ET is us. You travel, you reach the speed of light and you go past the speed of light, then you go backwards in time. He said, so maybe it's us out there that we've passed the speed of light and come back to Earth during this time period. And we're seeing us. And I thought about that. Now, very interesting idea here. But here, now, if there is a problem with that, if it is us and that is what's been going on, then why don't we tell us that? Right? Why don't we just go, dude, we're not from, we are you from the future. And start explaining religion to us and what's really going on and how is the universe really created? When did the Big Bang happen? If it is us, right? Now, I love Dee's idea here, and it fits really nicely. You can put that puzzle piece in and kind of jiggle it into place with everything else that you just mentioned and what we've talked about today on the show. Fits very, very nicely. When we find out, we will one day, and we find out, I think we're all just going to go, what? I didn't think of it that way. That's what it's going to be like. It's going to be just a crazy, that wasn't in the movies. That's not what I was thinking. Okay, but that's what's really going on. And whatever that is, we're going to find out. I think it's going to surprise us, though.
Well, let me ask you this, Jimmy. Referring to the metaphor of a puzzle piece fitting in perfectly with what we're saying, is it fitting perfectly due to our own perspective of these things, or is it fitting perfectly because of all the information that we have? And before you answer that question, let me just say this. Could the jellyfish UFO not be organic, but be kind of like an artificial intelligence drone from some other place? It looks like one of the drones from the Empire Strikes Back, or like the robot from Maximilian from the Disney movie The Black Hole. Do you see what I'm saying here? So when we're looking at all of this and everything that we talked about today, all the research that we've done over the years, Jimmy, what can you say to that?
Man, the reality of it, the reason why it fits is because it doesn't fit. Now, I don't want to sound like a shaman, I don't want to be that guy. To turn left, you must first turn right. Right? To go up, you must first go down. Well, no, I don't want to. I don't want to sound like that. But it fits because it doesn't. Because nothing. Every time we see something that we can't explain, whether it is a ghost, some crazy video that is strange, or something else in the sky, or whatever, your brain is trying to keep you sane. Your brain is trying to rationalize things for you. Okay? It's not your brain is not going to go, dude, that's interdimensional. This is what's really going on. You've been lied to. Your brain's not going to do that. It's going to rationalize things. So when you see something that you can't explain, or you hear something that just doesn't fit, well, then that's why it does fit, because there's so much unexplained out there. So if you are able to just shoehorn all of this information in and kind of mold it all together, what have we got? Right? Is it just a simple answer of not understanding physics and quantum physics and the nature of gravity and what is reality and what is time? And is it the same on the other side of the universe or in another universe? Is it as it is here? Right? It's as simple as that. Well, we don't know. We don't have these answers yet. We're getting close. And that's why constantly you have to shoehorn these ideas together. When I wanted to bring up Vimanas, and I want to briefly do this, and I also want that I want to talk about Aleister Crowley and Crowley and Lam. And the reason why I want to bring up Vimanas and Lam at the same time is because they're both Vedic. Yeah. They're both Buddhist. Yeah. They're both Hindu. And look, you see Cristina right there. She's like looking around. She's like, oh, what does Aleister have to do with? Has everything to do with it. All right. Aleister in 1919, he goes to New York. He's bouncing around the world. He goes to New York, moves into an apartment with this lady named Roddy Minor. And Roddy and Aleister start doing ceremonies in this apartment. And weird stuff starts going down. And they meet they get visited by this character called Lam. And he says that Lam reached out to them, that they were contacted by Lam. All right. Now, before I go any further with that, and what does Lam look like? And he looks like a classic gray. That's Aleister Crowley's drawing right there. All right. It's kind of freaky, isn't it? But do you know what Lam means in Tibetan? Do you know the definition? Lam, Lam. It's the word for way or path. That's right. It's the lower version of Lama, which means who goeth. Right? Now, think about that for a second here. I find that highly strange and way beyond coincidence. So just chew on that for a second. And remember, Lam reached out to Aleister, allegedly. Okay? Now, if we go back to what a Vimana is, a Vimana, it's a car. It's a vehicle, right? Use any definition that you want. Airplane. Craft. Right? Any self-moving aerial transport. You know, and that was, how do I want to say? I don't want to use the word throne. You know, like a seat or throne or what was that? What was that TV show? Game of Thrones. I don't want to portray it that way. Keep this image up on the screen. It carried people, cities through the air. And some descriptions were a palace. Some were, this one is what, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's got 5 floors. Some have 7, some have 6. The descriptions with engine rooms and systems in place and dwellings and shopping and apartments and all of these things. That's what if that isn't the description of a mothership, it doesn't exist. Right? And this goes back a lot. Now, there are a couple of instances in different texts that describe Vimanas differently, but the same. But all of them are mechanical.
Well, Jimmy, if you turn the Vimana upside down, it could be interpreted as a jellyfish UFO type object. Don't you think?
Dun, dun, dun. Possibly, but it would also look like an ice cream cone.
Can never go wrong with ice cream.
Yeah. Never go wrong with ice cream. But again, we started off this show the same way that we're going to end it, or at least for me, in that we are definitely understanding and questioning the interdimensional aspect of our world and what may be going on out there. What could be living alongside of us right now at the same time, and we don't see it. They don't see us, right? Think about it. They don't see us either. Are we the aliens to them? Do we pop into their world? In their world, are we their Bigfoot? Right? Now, think about that for a second. You know, in another dimension, some little kid going home to mom saying, okay, I saw this red thing with these 4 black things underneath it, and it was whooshing down the road with this sound, with this loud thing and music playing from the inside of it. What? Yeah, it was crazy. It had glass on it, and he's talking about a Corvette. In their world, it's a spaceship. Here, right? And it's just for an instant. And we really need to put ourselves in that kind of position here. Could this actually be going on? And that's why this show was so important, Cristina. We need to continue to ask these questions. You know, and you brought up, or I brought up, floaties in the eye. And I remember the first time I heard somebody talk about these, I was like, man, you know, I have them. I can look for them now. But what are floaties really? Well, they're probably stuff in your eye, right? Maybe on the inside of your eyeball, or that part may be real, but it will also cause a conversation about an interdimensional aspect. And for us to have that ability to have that conversation and to think about this, about something that crazy, and talk about it, is what separates us from everything else, including the rest of the world. We can do that on this show and not worry about criticism or confusion or embarrassment. So that's what makes this show so great.
It does. Thank you, Jimmy, for that little tidbit. And I agree with you. And No Filter, thank you so much. Ross as well. They Live. It's a classic. You can never go wrong with that kind of movie. I watch it when I can, next to Father Ted, of course. And Priminator, thank you so much. We don't believe in coincidences. You rock. Do coincidences even really exist? That's a serious question. Or does everything happen as it should be? Right? Don't know. It's up for you to decide. And all the things that we cover on this channel, it's just to open your mind, to ask questions. We do not have all the answers, but we will try our best to provide all the information that we can for you to create your own mural or your own delicious bowl of curry so that you can continue walking your way through life attempting to understand the things that are going on around you. But Jimmy, thank you so much, as always, for being on my show for Thursday's Mysteries with a History. Who do you have on tonight?
Ron Moorhead. And don't look at me confused. See, that's the issue with today's generation, man. Ron Moorhead.
I know who that is. It's Bigfoot guy.
Yeah,
Bigfoot researcher.
He recorded
the samurai sounds.
That's right. That's why I have on the show tonight. Yeah, it's a big deal. That's a real big deal. And what are we going to talk about tonight? Bigfoot and physics. Right? Tying all of this together, just like we are on this show right now. Thank you so much, Cristina. I'll see you and everybody else tonight on Fade to Black. Behave and be well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Another great show, as it is every single week. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, as we do 3 live shows right here on this channel every single week. Now we're in 2024. I have a QR code. Go ahead and scan that with your phone if you are watching this on a laptop or a computer, and it will show you all of my social media links. And now on my website and on Medium as well, I am writing up articles for all the shows that air in 2024. You do want to take a look at that, because sometimes it just makes it a little bit easier to read, don't you think? But that is it for today. Follow me on Twitter at eyes_on_the_skies and on Instagram at Strange Paradigms. And of course, if you want to continue the conversation, bring it over to the Discord server with 3,000 other like-minded members. Share your thoughts, your insights, your experiences, and more. Tomorrow is going to be Strange News at 3 p.m. PST. You do not want to miss that show, as it will be live. So also make sure to hit that notification bell right down below so that you do not miss it. Now, I do want to mention this rather quickly. For all of my YouTube members, first of all, y'all are absolutely amazing. But can I just say something really quick? Go over to Patreon. You'll get so many more perks and benefits instead of being a YouTube member. Okay, so go ahead, take a look at that. I'm also now giving out free merch. I'm super excited. It's exclusive. I will not be selling it. It's ones that I am making and giving out. All right. So it's super sick stuff. So check that out. You can also just rewind the QR code. It'll be right there for you just to scan and look at that. But that is it for today. I will see you tomorrow. Be safe. And remember, keep your eyes on the skies.